Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blind Spots, Episode 8. I'm your host, Gail McDonald, and today we are going to wrap up Assumptions, the Unseen Saboteurs of Connection. We did part 1 last week. I'll give you a little bit of a summary on that if you missed it, or you can always go and have a listen to let you know what part 2 is going to be all about as well. Okay, so before we get started, I'd like to just read you a disclosure, which I'm also going to have put up on my website, because I just want it to be really clear on the intention and, not cross the boundaries with what we're doing here. So the Blind Spots podcast is for reflection and inspiration, not for advice. We explore emotional intelligence, personal growth, and relational dynamics through stories and conversation, both with my guests and some of my own comments as well. So what's shared is meant to spark curiosity, not to serve as professional guidance. I'm not a therapist. I'm a trained and certified life coach, and I take that very seriously, so as not to cross the boundary. All views shared by the host or the guests, the host being myself, are personal and do not represent affiliated organizations. And by tuning in, you agree to engage with this content thoughtfully and with discernment. So I do hope some of you are walking away with just one very small piece of information, or maybe a resource that would help you. I know the biggest part of my career and my education over and above my training is the variety of books that I've chosen to read. Whether I agree with the content or not, it just helps me to develop a different perspective. What I'd also like to do today is acknowledge our Remembrance Day in Canada and Veterans Day in the States. We now have Remembrance Week from November 5th to the 11th, and this week includes Indigenous Veterans Day on November 8th and Remembrance Day on November the 11th. It is also acknowledged in the United States, our neighbors to the south, as Veterans Day. So I just would like to take a moment and acknowledge everyone who is currently serving, everyone who has served in the past to give us the freedoms that we experience today. So thank you to everyone. All right. So where did we leave off last week? Well, we talked quite a bit about the assumptions that we make that can get in our way of having meaningful and enjoyable relationships. And that includes the relationship with ourselves. And when we make assumptions, we are unable to actually think through what is truly real. And when we respond to people, either face-to-face or via email, or sometimes a heated text that we can't take back sometimes because it's too late, it really does create a lot of drama and also a lot of challenges that we really don't need to have. So we're going to continue that today. And what I'm going to address today is really how to acknowledge the assumptions and how to quiet the lizard brain, as well as the 90-second rule that I learned through Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor. She's got a real fascinating experience, and she is a brain researcher. So if you ever have the opportunity to read her book or watch her on YouTube, it's very, very encouraging, and it does help to explain a lot about the brain and how our brains actually work. And I'd like to also share with you that it was years ago that I began to realize and that I came across information about the lizard brain, and I really didn't know what it was. But through doing some research and reading books that discuss this type of information, it made me realize that I had more control than I really do. And we all have a lizard brain, and it will react in the most involuntary times. And we need to learn how to harness it and not be impulsive with our reactions. And that's where the second part of the show today is going to come in, is talking about the 90-second rule. And that was really something that I wasn't aware of either. And prior to learning about this information and actually implementing some of the practices, it is improving. Years ago, my lizard brain pretty much ruled my life. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't think there was anything I could do about it. And I would make assumptions. And I might have mentioned this last week about walking into work, somebody's in a bad mood, and I would think it was my fault. And then I would have another thought that would confirm that. And by the time I was exhausted and at the end of the rabbit hole with this type of thinking, I just really wanted to quit and go work somewhere else. And that really wasn't an option. But once we realized that we do have control over it, and that takes time because it is a skill, it becomes close to natural after a while. And I must say that for myself, the awareness that I now have is that the thought comes, it's there. Is it relevant? How am I going to respond to it? Am I going to respond to it? And something I think I shared last week, but in case I didn't, I'll give it a repeat for you, is when we are in that moment of responding, we need to think about what we're thinking about. And I can't stress this enough. We need to use the acronym THINK and think about if what we're going to say is thoughtful, T, H, helpful, I, insightful, N, necessary, and K, kind. And if it's not, maybe we just need to quieten down a little bit and reserve our answers for later when we've had some time to think about it. And sometimes I find myself thinking, I don't really have to respond at all. And I mentioned Stephen Chudlesky's book about the speak up culture, and he has a great quadrant, and I would love to really have him on this show. So let's just put that out there and attract that because his content is fantastic. But it really helps us to decide if we're in the environment and if the need is there to respond with whatever we're going to respond with. So today we'll take a closer look at some of the tools, and I'd like to also let you know that it might not work the first few times, the first 24, 100 times, but just keep at it and know that when you're paying attention to it and addressing it, over time, you're going to notice these things. Do I really need to say anything about this? Is this worth it? What is it going to cost me in the long run? And it's very critical. So it's really thinking about what you're thinking about, have more of a consciousness around what you're saying, and try to be less reactive. So I'd like to read you just a couple of sentences from information that was actually posted by Seth Godin back in 2010. And the information is from Stephen Pressfield. He would be worth Googling. He's got quite a few resources on things that we're talking about today. And so what he says is, we say we want one thing, and then we do another. And I have this argument with myself all the time, because if I knew it was good for me, I would eat cupcakes 7 days a week. We have this amazing cupcake shop where I live, and I dream about them sometimes. Once in a while, I'll give up and I'll go buy a cupcake or maybe two. And if there's something that I really would like to have, and I give myself the talk about, well, when did you have it last? Is it okay? Are you wanting to eat more healthily? And then sometimes it works, and then sometimes I just break down and I have the cupcake. So I've said one thing, or I want one thing, and then I do another, all right? And it's just so very common. We say we want to be successful, but we sabotage the job interview. We say we want a product to come to market, but we sandbag the shipping schedule. We say we want to be thin, but we eat too much. We say we want to be smart, but we skip class. or don't read the book that the boss lent us. And you may not be able to relate to all of those, but I'm sure many of you can relate to at least one of them. The contradictions never end. I want this, but I'm going to do that. And therefore, I'm not going to get what I want. And why is that? Because you made a choice. We're the only species on the planet that has the ability to choose one thought over the other. And I think that's according to Darwin, but don't quote me on that. So know this as well. The lizard is a physical part of your brain. And when I hear it described as a prehistoric lump, I'm feeling back there, and I'm like, well, can I really feel it? Is there something I can do? Can I massage it? But it's that prehistoric lump near the brainstem that is responsible for fear, rage, and reproductive drive. We need those things. We need our brain to alert us to a potential real danger. But is everything a real danger? Why did the chicken cross the road? Because her lizard brain told her to. So there's multiple examples that I'm sure many of you could give. If you have any examples of when you either lost to your lizard brain or you won, I would love to hear them. And with your permission, of course, read them to our viewers. I was walking my dog yesterday and I had a moment of complete and absolute joy as I walked past a school, and we had a very wet snow, and there were 3 young ones, probably in about grade 2. And it was chilly, so they had their winter clothing on. Some of them had snow pants. And there was this awesome puddle, and it was so muddy because of the snow that we had had. And they were jumping in this, and their pants were filthy. And then one of them yells out, "Let's all jump in together." And at that moment, I thought, none of them are considering any consequences at all. Not, are they going to get in trouble from their teacher? Oh my gosh, I'm going to get my pants dirty. They didn't care. They didn't care what their parents were going to say. They were just having pure, joyous fun. And then I thought, as an adult standing by that mud puddle, I would probably think, I'll get my shoes wet, my socks wet, my pants wet. This is going to be no fun at all. And I would talk myself out of it and walk away and not embrace the joy that these kids are embracing. So I love that so much about little kids, is that they just don't care, right? They do not care. They will eat birthday cake till they get sick. They don't care. But somehow or another, as we age, we start to put all these expectations on ourselves. So know that it's not going away. We all have one. It's here to stay. And your job, my job, is how to quiet it and ignore it. And I might have mentioned Ethan Kross, with a K, who wrote the book Chatter, The Voice in Your Head, Why It Matters, because it does. That's why we have it. And how to harness it. That's the trick. It's simple, but it's not easy. So once I found out that I was like everybody else, and I had these thoughts and I wasn't going crazy, I decided that there was something I could do. And what I do know is it's hard work. It takes time, but it's absolutely worth it. And we can always keep improving. And life can be different as a result. Okay. So let's get into questions, because I can share this information with you. And it's really all for naught if I don't share with you some of the information I've learned as to how to get a grip and think about what I'm thinking about in a reasonable way. And in emotional intelligence, there is a subscale under one of the components, and it's about impulse control. And that's what we need to pay attention to. Do I react? Does someone say something and I automatically get triggered? And then there's conflict, arguing, drama? Or do I reserve my answer if I feel my emotions bubbling up? So, how would you rate your impulse control on a scale of 1 to 5? Do you find yourself reacting more, or do you step back and go, I'm going to have a think on that because I'm really not sure? Or, mm, could you say that differently? Is there another way that you could word that? Because I'm really not understanding what's being said here. And that's okay too. I've been um, sometimes thinking about just carrying around a roll of duct tape because it's just easy to snap off a piece and slap it over my mouth. I would go through a lot. I'd probably have to buy it in bulk, but it does get easier. So my supply of duct tape, metaphorically speaking, is not going down as quickly as it used to, but it can be really, really tough. When my friend and I, Susan Sneath, had our talk show, The Change Zone, on Bold Brave TV network, we did have an episode on the lizard brain. And I decided to give mine a name. So I decided to talk to it. And it's much easier talking to someone when you call them by their name. And I chose Gloria because for some weird reason, anyone that I met in my life that forgets my name calls me Gloria. I don't know, maybe it's because it starts with a G, just like Gail, but who knows? So I chose Gloria. So when I get a thought, I address Gloria and ask her if this is really the truth, or is it just a thought? I want to acknowledge the thought, label the thought, because if we try to push back, it's going to come back with a vengeance. It's not going to go away. It's like when you push your hands up against someone else's and they're pushing theirs up against you. They push harder. What do? You push harder. You don't stand back and put your hands back. It's just an automatic reflex. So label the thought, and instead of engaging with it, recognizing it. So rather than giving it more fuel, extinguish it and just recognize that it's there. Period. That isn't hard. And then ask, state, there's that thought again. Oh, there's that thought again. Interesting. I wonder what I'm going to do about that. Well, I'll sit with it for a while and just see what happens. And that creates a distance between you and the idea. And I've even pictured Gloria just as a little bean person, like I don't even have a physical image of Gloria, but just sitting as a very tiny being, like right on my shoulder near my ear, which is where I envision my thoughts to go in, when really, in essence, they're coming from inside. But it's kind of like that in the cartoons. They have the little angel and little devil, and they're having an argument. So I've got her on my shoulder, and I'm having that conversation. How might you ask a new question? Shift focus by asking, what's a completely different way to look at this? Or what would my wiser self say? And let's not kid ourselves. We have a wiser self, all of us. We know what to do. But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Cy Wakeman is someone that I've been following for a while. And I remember Cy saying, when you have a thought that makes you feel uncomfortable and you're not really sure what to do with it, think of 5 different ways that you can perceive the situation. And that's not going to be easy, and it's not going to come quickly. But if you're able at some point, reflect on it later, write them down. And when I was doing career planning and working with people that were re-careering, they would make the assumption that in a job interview, they had failed badly for whatever reasons. And we would talk about how they could reframe that. And some of the reasons were they had a panel interview, more than one person, and one of the people was just making notes in a notebook. They weren't acknowledging, they weren't asking questions. One of them were on their phone. There was a question asked, and they felt the answer was completely inappropriate. They stumbled over their words. It didn't flow, it wasn't fluid. And so they had convinced themselves that they did not get the role. A week later, they got an offer. So my question is, we know we make assumptions. We know where they come from. They come from our lizard brain. Is that if it's not going to change the outcome, why do we have all these negative thoughts that we agonize over and lose sleep over? And how many of you actually save all this for bed? You're in bed at night and you're just ready to go to sleep, and then you start reflecting. And your amygdala, or in my case, my Gloria, might keep me up till 1:30 in the morning. Oh my gosh, I should have said this to a client. What did I do wrong on the podcast? What could I have done differently? So I tell myself different things, and actually I'm surprised over time. It has gotten better, but it does happen. So just to be aware of it, okay? With regards to wiser self, there is something that I have been introduced to lately called positive intelligence. And I will post this on my website. Excuse me, because the gentleman that is sharing this information, I don't have his name, and I don't want to get it wrong. And I was going to look it up before the episode, and yet I will, because it's only fair that he gets the credit for this. So if you go to positive intelligence / saboteurs, just Google that. There's a very short quiz, and it has 9 different saboteurs, and it's the different ways that our amygdala shows up. And it's really interesting to find out what your default saboteur is. Okay? And again, once I found out what that was, mine is the stickler. So I'm always looking for things to pick at and ways to improve, and it drives myself crazy. So I can imagine what I did in the past with other people and what I still may do, but I need to have a stronger awareness around. If I'm looking for what could always be done better, and if it's not managed, that can really get in the way. So if you're in project management and you're a stickler, and you're a real stickler, and you don't know you're a stickler, things just may not move forward as they need to, because sometimes we just can't wait for absolutely everything to be perfect before we stick our toe in the water. So assess it, get moving. What can we move forward with? What maybe needs more attention? And then make that decision, but make it with reality. Use humor. Imagine the thought in a ridiculous voice, like a cartoon character. Or maybe you've inhaled helium. I think that's the gas that makes you sound like a chipmunk. Or think of something so absolutely absurd. I've talked to people who have had a real quick turnaround with that, and they've thought this really negative thought and then just burst out laughing and said, really? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Is this really going to happen? There's no way it could happen. Right? So use humor with yourself. Sometimes humor is truly the best medicine, even in times of strife. Okay? Ground yourself in reality. We go and we take a great big breath in the morning when we start our work or start our day. We're a stay-at-home parent, whatever it is, and we hold that breath until we can let it go at night. And that is just not healthy. And of course, I know y'all know I'm kidding about that, but it feels like that. And I've spoken to people who feel they can't take 1 minute, 5 minutes. If you can't take 5 minutes in a 24-hour day for yourself, how are you going to begin to manage what's going on in your mind? So if something happens and you're really not sure how you would like to answer it, and you're saying nothing, think about something else. So it's just recreating a different groove. And what's suggested here is to ground yourself in reality. I actually have a meditation on my phone with doing this. So, yeah, I forgot about that up until now. Look around and name 5 things you see, and then 5 things you hear, and 5 things you feel. Just find a distraction, something that will send you in a different direction, something very general. Perhaps you could do a very small body movement. Maybe you could wiggle your toes, or you could maybe rub your fingertips together, or take some deep breaths. When we're go, 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 we're shallow breathing all the time, and we're just not getting what we need in our bodies to think clearly. I know most of the times for me that are less than favorable are when I've been hungry or tired or just overwhelmed with too much on my plate. So if you're going into something that requires your full attention, really work hard at planning for it like you would anything else that's going to be challenging or possibly overwhelming. Flip to gratitude. I really can't remember if I shared with you last week about the corner of the $5 bill. And I was walking my dog years ago, and I found a corner of a $5 bill in the grass. So I picked it up and I took it home and I put it on the fridge. And one of my kids asked me why I did that. And I said, well, it's just to me signifies that there is more to come. Even if you don't have the complete bill, you have a portion and there's more of that to come. This is hard to believe, but a couple of days later, I actually found another piece of that same bill. So I had to resist dropping to my knees and looking on the ground for the rest of it, taping it together and taking it to the bank. Apparently, all you need are the serial numbers. So yeah. So what are you grateful for? And you don't need to go anywhere special. You don't need to plug in your earbuds and listen to a meditation. What are 3 things that you're grateful for? And if you can, if you're not driving, if you're just listening, or maybe if you're doing a mindless task, grab a pen and write down 3 things. There is always something to be grateful for. When I broke my ankle in December of 2023, I was grateful that I finally figured out how to get my coffee up the 3 stairs to my home office. And it was tricky. It was very tricky. But I was grateful too that our house wasn't 5,000 square feet when I was on crutches. And I was happy to ditch the crutches and get to the boot cast, but it's still pretty tricky. So those tiny things, making it to the washroom by myself without being wobbly, and then getting the cast off, like having the air cast gone, and actually wearing 2 shoes because you feel kind of lopsided when you've got a cast on, right? So any tiny thing. And that's what I want to use my brain for, is thinking about what's positive in my life, because that's where the energy comes from. And sometimes it's really hard to find something to be grateful for, but if it's even your sense of humor or your food on the table or in the cupboard, whatever it is, a friend, you have great friends, you've got something to be grateful for. And it really can change the perception. And that's what we're trying to do here, is just do some of these things to change the perception. There's two more to go here. I love this one. Move your body. Just get up, stretch, go for a walk if you can. Do something. I have a rebounder downstairs and I love it because I have a little TV in front of it. And so I just feel when I'm doing that, there's other health benefits, but the one that I love the best is that I just feel like I'm shaking out all of the stagnant, sludgy things that maybe I've thought about through the day or maybe that didn't go well. And just take some breaths as well. But get up and move. Just maybe go up and down your stairs a few times. Go down to the basement, come back up, go upstairs, come back down, and then take some deep breaths. Go and make a beverage or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be difficult because we sit or we just stand in one position and everything just starts to, I kind of envision it going right to my feet. And you know, if you've got blocks of concrete on your feet, walking's going to be really hard. So that's that kind of mental concrete that you can get on your feet. Okay. And visualize something better. I often think of the ocean because I just love heat. Ask me why I live in a climate where it never gets never gets above 80 degrees or very rarely in the summertime, or 30 Celsius, you call it. But I just love listening or envisioning the ocean. And I know there was a resort I went to once and I woke up and the cabin was right on the ocean and I could hear the waves lapping against the shore. It's just so easy to do. It doesn't cost anything except your time and attention and your focus and the acceptance that maybe you want to change your life to be different. That's it, right? Doesn't have to be difficult. Know that in wrapping this segment up, that involuntary thoughts welcome themselves into our minds and that will never change. And we let them. So here's a challenge. Give your amygdala a name. You can name it anything you want. But if you have the thoughts and you address that part of your brain with a name, it might be less weird and you might be more willing to do it. Come to think of it, I haven't called on Gloria in a long time. So maybe some of this stuff is starting to work, right? So I just encourage you to just be aware. That's all I'm asking. Be aware of your impulse control. Be aware of your reaction versus response time. And just observe. That's the first step to shifting things to be more how you would like them to be, is just to be observant. So having said that, we're going to slide in to the 90-second information and some additional tips. And I think that will get very close to wrapping up our session today. So Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor, like I said, check her out on YouTube. She writes about her stroke of insight, and it's about a brain scientist's personal journey. And I remember reading the book a very long time ago. I've also watched Dr. Taylor, and it's so interesting how she explains. Firstly, she's in brain science, and she had a stroke. And the way she described what happened and then wrote about it, that absolutely was unbelievable to me. I really couldn't believe that someone could do that. Okay. So she's somebody you might want to check out in your spare time. Okay. So just want to make sure I've got this far too much to remember just off the cuff. Okay. So 90 seconds. Name the emotion. Firstly, what am I feeling right now? Am I feeling fearful? Am I feeling angry? What is it? And so there's an actual tool, and my friend Susan and I discussed this tool, the the feelings wheel, on the third episode of Blind Spots. And when we were discussing that we had lost our sons within 2 months of each other, that's what that episode was about. And we were talking about the feelings wheel, and it is created by Dr. Gloria Wilcox. All you have to do is Google her, and the wheel will come up. And what I love about it is it has more of the main emotions in the center. And then as it spreads out, it names other emotions as well. So this is teeny tiny, but I'll try and give you an example. So if you're feeling fearful, let's define it. What is the fear about? Are you scared? Are you anxious? Are you feeling insecure? Are you feeling weak? Are you feeling rejected, or are you feeling threatened? And you may feel one, depending on the situation, or you can feel multiple at the same time. Just really depends. So we want to identify the fear, and the same thing with happy, right? Are you feeling playful? Are you feeling content? Are you feeling proud? Are you feeling accepted? Are you feeling joyful? What is it? So the more we can actually learn about our emotions, well, I think it just goes without saying that the more we can actually begin to manage them even a little bit better. Okay. So step 2, you might want to close your eyes and pay attention to the physical sensations and emotions arising. We feel emotions in our body. Think about where you're feeling it. And there is a book. I do believe it's Chris Hartstein. And Chris is actually a practitioner with nonviolent communication. And I will get her the title of her book. It's not coming to me right now, and the book just came into my mind, and so did Chris. So she talks about, and she uses this with children a lot in her work, is where do you feel the emotion and what color is it? And it's really interesting when you start to be more aware of what's going on in your body. Sometimes we might feel physically sick in our stomach, or sometimes we feel our heart almost pounding like it's coming out of our chest. And then to give it a color. And she gave us a couple of examples on the change zone in that episode. So it's Dr. Chris Hartstein, or excuse me, Chris Hartstein, pardon me. I don't think Chris has the doctor title. So she was explaining how with children, sometimes they felt really yellow in their heart if they were feeling happy, or maybe it was blue if they were feeling sad. And red, oddly enough, sometimes gets the definition of anger or fear. So when you take a look at this wheel, if you choose to look it up, it will give you a little bit more information as to what you're really feeling. And then you can ask yourself, well, why am I feeling that? Is it a trigger, or is it reality? Am I feeling upset about something that happened 20 years ago? And that can happen as well. And sometimes we're not even aware of it. Okay. So Taylor says or suggests that looking at the second hand on a watch can also bring those emotions down, especially if they're extremely intense. And trust me, I've tried that. I've done it. And sometimes 1 minute or 90 seconds can seem like 3 hours. It's like each hand is ticking, or the second hand's ticking very slowly. All right. And no two, and I've heard this before when I first started coaching and had a coach. She said to me that emotion is just energy in motion. The emotions we have, they don't last forever. They come and they go, just like our thoughts. So think about how great it would be if you gave it enough thought and realized, okay, I'm feeling really uptight about this. It will pass. And give yourself permission to understand that you are feeling that and even sit with it for a moment. Ask yourself some questions. Or think of 3 things that you see, or 5 things you see, pardon me. 5 things you see, 5 things you hear. Try some of these things. They're tools and they can work. I'm not saying they're going to work for everybody. What I had found, if I'm not receptive to an idea and I try it reluctantly, maybe I just pass on it, or I say, oh, it doesn't work. But then I also think, did I really give it my best shot? Did I give it enough time? And usually the answer is no. So I'll go back and I'll give it a better go. Okay. So step 3, check your thoughts. What if you still feel the same after 90 seconds? And this is from Dr. Taylor. After 90 seconds, if you continue to feel fear, anger, and so on, you need to look at the thoughts that you're thinking that are re-stimulating the circuitry that is resulting in you having this psychological or physiological response over and over again. Check in with yourself after the 90 seconds have passed. How do you feel? What are you thinking about? Do these thoughts serve you? I love that question, and I ask myself that question a lot. And what I've experienced is, since I've started thinking about what I think about, and since I've started to do more research and work at, as best as I can, implementing this, I'm more tired that, when I'm doing it, or at the end of the day, because I'm learning a new skill, I'm creating a new groove. But I would rather be joyfully tired and acknowledge that it's from I'm creating a new habit versus I've thought a bunch of really negative thoughts all day. And if you think it's not possible, change that. What is your possible? It's possible because I have this at stake. It's possible because I'm a really intelligent human being and I've got this. It's possible because I want a different life. I want different results. I'm done with the drama. I'm done with wasting time and I'm done with wasting energy. So ask yourself that question. Do these thoughts serve you? Okay? Make a plan. There's some work to do to tend to the thoughts that might re-stimulate this emotional loop. Journal it. Find a quiet place. Talk to someone, or do whatever might help you let go of the lingering thoughts. I don't recall mentioning The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I've read most of the book. I did not finish it yet. I've had a couple of people mention it to me and they said they absolutely loved it. They found it very, very beneficial. Okay. All right. So we are looking at closing up here. And what I would like to do is conclude with some additional tips. And I will read them to you. And then I will figure out a way how to get them to you in print, possibly on my website, possibly on the YouTube channel. So there's a couple of them here. The first one is, do your best to approach this practice without judgment. Have you ever shared an idea with someone, or have you thought about doing something yourself? And the first thing that comes to your mind is, this is really stupid. This is the dumbest idea ever. Why would that work? Well, what's the question you can ask yourself? Why wouldn't it work? So you have a choice at that very moment to just flip the question around, change the meaning, change the order, do whatever you have to do. Why wouldn't it work? Why can't it work? Do yourself a favor and look for the why can't instead of why won't. All right? Try not to ignore or invalidate the emotion or get caught up in the stories about why you feel this way and maybe wish you didn't. I've thought about the reason as to why it's important we find out the why of us. Like, why do we feel this way? Why do I do things a certain way? And the only answer, well, I don't even know if it's an answer, but maybe it's another question, is how will that matter? Like, if I'm being triggered by something, would it be helpful for me to know what the trigger is? Because sometimes I don't even know what's triggering me. Or would it be more helpful to just start a new practice to whatever is getting in the way of me changing in the way I would like to change, or doing things differently the way I would like to do them, to have better relationships, reduce the drama, all of the stuff I said before. Okay? The second thing is observe, identify, and interrupt unhelpful thought patterns. Sing a song. Sing yourself happy birthday. I don't care. Maybe sing a song. If you have a musical instrument, pick it up and start playing. Do something. All right? Find ways to pause and notice the thoughts that activate the circuit. Close your eyes, take deep breaths, count down from 5, or check your watch. If that doesn't work, do it again. Count back from 100 if you have to. Okay? But just keep trying. There's probably a thought somewhere in your brain of somebody who did you wrong 20 years ago. Every time you think of that person, it still starts that circuit. When I went to a high school reunion quite a few years back, I was at the registration desk. And of course, we all knew each other. We had just gotten that many years older. And this fellow came to the desk and I checked his name, and it was who I thought it was. And just instinctively and reactively, I said, Gary, I will never forgive you for putting rocks in those snowballs. Like, that pretty much ruined that whole grade 9 in high school. He was horrified. He got beet red, his jaw dropped, and he apologized. And that was a really long time ago. So my point being is, and oddly, I've thought about it intermittently throughout the years, not that it's something that really bothers me or I've hung on to, but know that when people do things that we perceive are hurtful, they might not be doing it on purpose. They're not even going to remember. So why should you? Why should I? I thought Gary hated me, but maybe he had a crush. I don't know why Gary threw the snowballs with the rocks in it, but I ran like crazy with my short little legs because I didn't want to get, beamed in the head with a snowball that had a rock inside. So let it go, right? Let it go. I know some of the people, I'm pretty sure, that have inadvertently even harmed me in the past, they're not even alive anymore. And if I was that type to hang on, I could be hanging on to the thoughts of something they did, and they're not even around. I couldn't even go back and say, like I did with Gary, hey, you put the rock in the snowball, metaphorically speaking, right? So just give these things a thought. I know I've said a lot about this. I believe it to be working for me. I hope there's something you feel you can get started with. If you have questions, just send them, just forward them, and we can maybe have a chat about them. right? And when things are getting hot and you're getting hot-headed, look at your watch and remember that 90 seconds. Because according to Dr. Taylor, there's a chemical thing that happens in your brain where we get to just let it go even a little bit. And if you have to, you can say something like, no disrespect, but I need to go away and have a think about this. And then remove yourself from the environment, because it's way easier to do that than to try and backpedal and figure out who did what, why, what they said, how they said it, and all of the above. And there's just no time in life for that. Life's too precious. We don't want to waste it. All right. Okay. So we are at the end of this show. I'll be posting it soon on LinkedIn, Instagram. You can watch on my YouTube channel. I remembered the other one, so I apologize to iHeart last week for forgetting. iHeart, Apple, Spotify, and multiple other platforms. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know via my website. If you'd like to be a guest, go to the podcast page and scroll right to the bottom, and it said podcast guest. Send me some info, fill it out. I'll take a look at that. We'll have a chat. And I just really wish you all the best for a great week. And we'll see what's going to happen next week. So all the best, everybody. Take care. Thank you so much for your time. One thing I'm grateful for always is that anybody that listens today or in the future, and please share if you feel there's something of value that you would like to share in this episode. So have a great week. Take care. Bye now.